Black Op Radio presents 50 Reasons for 50 Years. Why the Warren Commission may be the greatest fraud perpetrated on the American public. Now your host, Len Osanic.
The unexplained shooting of the assassination's prime suspect while in police custody and in their own building raised eyebrows around the world. Could it be that there was more to this story?
As Lee Oswald was laid to rest at a sparsely attended funeral service, the wire services were printing stories with new information underlying his guilt. The Associated Press, for example, widely amplified a story from local Dallas media which quoted unnamed members of Dallas police describing a map linked to Oswald marking potential sniper positions along the president's motorcade route. What police sources did not say was that the markings did not actually coincide with the motorcade route, and that Oswald told police that the map was used while he was looking for work. 2 days later, after further questions about this evidence, the Dallas police announced there never was a map. Some of the most prominent media coverage from the time is highly compromised. A representative from Life magazine had purchased the original Zapruder film hours after the assassination, effectively locking it away from the American people and leaving the investigation with inferior copies. In its December 6, 1963 issue, Life sought to dispel conspiracy rumors and did so in part with a false description of the Zapruder film, the film that was in their possession, and it wasn't just slightly wrong, it was completely wrong in its description of the president facing towards the sniper's nest and receiving a shot in the throat. Is it likely that the film was kept away from the Life reporters as well? Otherwise, how can you explain this error? In February 1964, Life featured one of the backyard photos on its cover. Inside, a long biographical article titled, "The Evolution of an Assassin," presented Lee Oswald as an unbalanced loner with anger management issues who was also a deadly marksman. Written in prose more fitting for one of the pulpy true crime magazines available at the time.
Of course, while publishing these stories, Life had locked away in their corporate headquarters an 8mm film which had graphic, compelling proof of a conspiracy.
On June 1st, 1964, the New York Times published a front-page story based on information provided by an unnamed Warren Commission spokesman. In what amounted to an official leak, the spokesman confirmed that the commission report would arrive at the same conclusions as the FBI investigation the previous December. This was a deliberate response to a growing chorus of doubt directed at these conclusions, particularly from Europe, where public figures such as philosopher Bertrand Russell lobbied for an independent investigation. On June 12th, Time magazine published an article which claimed European-based conspiracy advocacy was political in nature and little more than socialists seeking to discredit the right.
You are watching an official reenactment of the murder of President John F. Kennedy, filmed from the window where the alleged assassin crouched, and through the telescopic sight of his rifle.
The release of the Warren Report was presented on live television, preceded by documentary segments designed to bolster the conclusion that the alleged assassin was in fact the guilty man.
It is now 15 seconds after 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Sunday, September the 27th. As of this moment, the report of the President's Commission is public record. No investigation could have been more painstaking than that carried out by this commission. Every resource of criminology was called into play: ballistics tests, analysis of the guns themselves, handwriting analysis, the blanket in which the rifle was wrapped, the photographs and the documents linking Oswald to the crime.
In one interesting aside, the failure of security was explained by a rationale which would famously be returned to decades later.
The Dallas police were not warned, the commission found, because the Secret Service was not warned. The Secret Service was not warned because of insufficient liaison among the federal law enforcement agencies.
In other words, a contributing factor was a failure to connect the dots. The print media also devoted special attention to the Warren Report. Life magazine not only allowed Commission member Gerald Ford to assess the Commission's work, but the issue itself was reprinted several times to adjust and change captions and frames of the Zapruder film, carefully covering up the fact that the film in their possession showed strong evidence of a conspiracy.
Neither Life magazine or the Warren Commission ever addressed the backward motion of the president's head, preferring instead to pretend such a motion never existed.
Stay tuned for the next installment as we expose week after week 50 lies the Warren Commission would like you to believe.